forget the fact that India have saved this test by the skin of their teeth somehow, right? This is now about Ashna. Like after a lot of wondering whether he's stealing the limelight, whether he's not being spoken about enough, now we will talk about only him, and rightfully so.
Day, you've not been following this podcast over? Like 151 episodes. We've talked about nothing but him, da. In fact, the problem is, what are we going to talk about on 152?
TV umpire to director, we have a player review. Can we rock and roll, please?
It has been a day and then some at B&P Towers. Ashna, the greatest source of needles and bananas, or nibs as we call them, the greatest source of airtime and content among other things on this podcast, has retired from international cricket. Whether it was content or discontent in the end is a question for another day, but today is a day to celebrate a stellar international career. It's a day that's reduced even the most neutral arbiters and pundits to catchphrases like "don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened, you know who you are," and other such lines normally found on teenage greeting cards. With that nib out of the way, time to introduce our dramatis personae, or as the past few hours have revealed, dramatic personae. PGK, Max, PDP. We have a full house today. Kaustubh Bashna, as Bisi calls himself, and Jobs. Fellows, welcome to episode 151 of your friendliest cricket podcast. I see we have almost 2/3 of 11. We have room for Ashna, unlike those guys. So, time to throw it to you, PGK. Thoughts after a few hours?
No, I actually think, obviously, I think nobody was expecting it. I was hoping, and for the record, for everybody who's watching this podcast, 3 days later, I'm going to fly out to Melbourne, to the MCG to watch the Boxing Day test. I had some hope that maybe I will watch, I mean, it wasn't just for this, but I also wanted to watch Ashwin bowl at MCG. I had hope. In fact, just yesterday night, I was going back and looking at the MCG scorecard from 2021, where they played both Ashwin and Jadeja together. And I was like hoping maybe they will do it again. But sadly, it wasn't to be. Yeah, I think still sinking in. I think we're all just like taking it in.
I have one question. What was your first indication that something is going to happen? 9:30 in the morning or something. This Gaurav Gupta had tweeted, right? Suno, suno, suno. Watch out! Very big announcement coming. Someone could finally be pulling down the curtains on a glorious career today. So watch out for this space. I thought about it for 2 minutes and I realized it's not Rohit Sharma. Right? It said pulling down glorious career. Like there is no like I got my hopes up thinking he's going to retire, but turns out it's not him. So then we went through the rigmarole and maybe it's Kohli. Or maybe Rohit is going to say he's going to retire after WTC. Who else will retire now? Surely not Ashwin. Ashwin doesn't make sense. Why would he travel to Australia if he knew he was going to retire? All of this was happening, and then he decides to, for some reason, spend his last moments on air next to Kohli, the man who dropped him for every series.
Yes.
And like there was a hug there, so then we're like, okay, is Kohli retiring? Or is Ashwin sad that he can't be captain? What is happening?
Kaus, that's the smile because it happened part. You missed it.
It did come as a surprise. Like it's this complete speculation happening till he actually everyone in the press box saw him walk in along with Rohit with the announcement. Rohit was very emotional during the post match presser itself. It was like quite. I don't know. It's a little strange. I'm wondering why he traveled to Australia in the first place. If Rohit is to be believed, he had decided to want to retire before the series only started. So I think that's where we should start, if anything. Like, forget the fact that Travis Head has scored 100 and got another player of the match. Forget the fact that India have saved this test by the skin of their teeth somehow, right? This is now about Ashna. Like, after a lot of wondering whether he's stealing the limelight, whether he's not being spoken about enough, now we will talk about only him, and rightfully so.
Day, you've not been following this podcast over? Like 151 episodes. We've talked about nothing but him, da. In fact, the problem is, what are we going to talk about on 152?
Yes. That's what I was going to say. I was like, look, Ashwin is going to be fine. He's taking a flight home tomorrow. He's going to be with his wife and family. He's going to celebrate Christmas, going to celebrate New Year. The rest of the Indian team is going to go to Melbourne. But what will this group do?
This
What
is
will
true.
you do?
I think we see it clearly in Max coming in all black today. Even Bisi today names himself Bashna because here we are on the final episode of this podcast. Max,
Yeah, exactly.
say your farewells first, and then we go to the others.
This is a violation of my rights as a fan. This is egregious, preposterous. This is absolutely unexpected, and so, because this is weird. So the last thing I saw on the TV before I switched off to go to sleep last night was that thing of Virat and Ashwin hugging in the change room, and that's what I saw. I was like, okay, and then I went to sleep. Woke up in the morning, and
Wait, wait,
then
wait, 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 wait. Let's stop there for a second. Why did you just see that and decide this is normal?
Exactly.
I know
Ashwin is
it's
shedding a
raining.
tear. Ashwin is shedding. You
When
think
I-
you thought that was normal? When has Ashwin
No,
cried?
Yeah,
was
when-
not.
I just want to answer what Kaustav said. Kaustav asked this question like, when did you know? I knew then. When I saw this, and I'm like, Ashwin cry. I'm like, Kohli is not retiring. He's definitely.
I
Ashwin.
didn't think it was crying. I didn't think it was crying
You
because
thought it was
he's.
puff of dust.
But yeah, that was the last thing I saw on the TV. Woke up in the morning, see this news, and absolutely demolished because for all the other ones, right? You could say you saw it coming, right? For Lakshman and all of these guys, you could see it coming, and it was not that big a surprise. Even with Dada or even Kumble, to the fact you could say, okay, you were not completely shocked. But this one again, it's not like it's been absolutely pedestrian or anything like that. He bowled in the Adelaide Test. Everyone was bad, barring Bumrah. So it was like, okay, you play. And especially given the fact since the New Zealand series, where everyone was like, oh yeah, he's gone. But that's what this podcast does, right? And especially when you have people like Chopra and Prashant and all that, there's only one thing they have in their hand, right? They're running with madmen
Nice.
with sickles in their hands.
Wow.
So
Nice.
I mean,
We are naming names today. I like it. Go on.
you tend to erase these idiots from memory, saying, okay, this is what they can speak. But you start looking at, what reality says. And reality says the guy scored a century and won you the Chennai Test and all that. So, okay, he's still in there. He's traveling. He's still your first choice spinner. They don't play him at Perth. Then also I kind of made peace because PGK was like, no, it's the right thing to do. It's a fast bowl, so there's not much spin. I was like, okay, fine. And then they play him at Adelaide, very rightfully so, as in the next test. Makes sense. And then Rohit coming and saying that, oh, he told me at Perth that he didn't want to play anymore, and I, egged him to play one more. And it's just like, I'm not ready for this, guys. Especially like for all the people who want to retire, you cannot retire before
Holding ball
nylon.
in hand.
You
Showing
cannot
white
let
ball,
you
this is
cannot
like
let
slap of
nylon
Ashwin,
go past you. That is the thing I just cannot take it, right? Anything is okay, but nylon is going to be higher on the list than him. That I cannot take.
நன்றி P-Dog. இருங்க ஒரு நிமிஷம். To the P-Dog who is in Chennai, any further comments because you have been named?
Let me get the warning on the cigarette packet out of the way. Okay, great career, legend of Indian cricket, best off spinner India has ever produced, most number of wickets taken by a spinner in India ever in the history of the game is R Ashwin. So let's get all that. Absolute legend,
All
massive.
the asterisks are out.
Correct.
Excuse me.
Now-
I thought we were here to discuss that. You are saying
Yeah.
that is the disclaimer.
That is the disclaimer, Machan. Wait.
I used to nib saying right arm Rangana. So important clarification.
Right, Amar.
Most wickets of left-handers, Ashna. Most wickets by left-hander, Rangana. So
Wow, beauty.
you continue. That one.
Beauty. But to respond to Max, so there is a very comfortable binary that you are either a Ashna Bhakt and by definition a nylon hater. Okay. So historically, right, the hardest place to bowl off spin is Australia. Like the hardest place to bowl off spin. It's one of the reasons why Australia themselves have never had a really prolific off spinner. It's just a very, very tough place to practice that craft. Visiting off spinners, I can think of maybe two guys who've been successful there, and even they have had only very little success. One is Saklan Mushtaq, the other is maybe Arapali Prasanna or something. But even they've had only very, very limited success. Australia themselves have never had a good off spinner. It is the hardest place to bowl off spin. This guy plays half his test matches in Australia and he does that well. And you're talking about him as though he's some like unworthy pretender to, your precious Ashna's throne. That's a bit much.
Now we have
My
turned into
feeling, my wish, my house, my fandom, my wish. Yeah. Why you are coming and peeing all over my face? You want to pee? Go look up and pee up. It'll fall on your own. My fandom, yeah.
You go ahead, Ra, but
will think that no,
no,
you shut up, no, shut up. You will think Sridhar and Sharath, S. Sri Ram, Badrinath, all these guys should have played ahead of everyone. That and all is okay. Some T and Ranji nonsense we will all tolerate.
Prashant
A
is not that
genuine
person.
guy gets he's 20 wickets away from this other guy. For that, I will try to discredit. Means, oh, you are living your own bubble. Not yes, ma, my bubble only. My Ashna bubble only. I'm living. Now what
Your
he'll do?
bubble
Just want to say
okay.
that just want to say the narrative of this podcast is as unexpected as Ashwin's retirement. It's going in all weird directions. You'll see where this
Now we are defending Nylon's records while we are at it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're discussing left.
Very good, Ram. Amazing miss of Nidandi and Ashwarya Rai. But you, anyway, anyhow, Mr. Chops, you're the other name that has been named. Give a proper, honest tribute rather than making it personal, Ram.
Yeah.
No, I was just responding to PGK. The narrative of the podcast is actually going like Ashwin's fielding. Ball is somewhere, Ash is somewhere. Yeah, no, but I mean, for at least a little bit, let's perhaps dwell on the career he's had. I mean, stellar career. The man tried to very successfully reinvent himself multiple times, all sorts of experiments with his action, with his run up, with his loading, etc. I mean, wonderful to have seen him live in a stadium where his full glory can be captured and can be viewed. I've had the pleasure of doing that a couple of times, and it was absolutely wonderful to see him doing that. Also, I think someone whose batting perhaps was a little overlooked. There were moments, except for that West Indies drawn test, where his batting came really good for India in crunch times. Perhaps also a little bit of speculation, but someone who could really be in the leadership group of the team in terms of tactics and strategy, etc. Maybe we'll get to know more about it in times to come. He
That
won't
was his
leave any
final
stone
act.
unturned.
That was his final
Yeah,
act as a playing 11 player.
yeah. I don't think he's going to leave any stone unturned in letting us know what all he did, which is going to be great. But yeah, I think it's just an abrupt end to his career. I don't know if PGK noticed or not. I'm sure he did, but he won't mention it. But I mean, I thought at least that in the last test at Adelaide, even though he didn't have too many wickets to his name in our WhatsApp group, I was really egging him on because I thought he was, bowling quite well.
Standing
So,
speed.
yeah, I just doesn't have wickets to show for it, but yeah, I mean that was quite fantastic, and I was quite disappointed when he was dropped here, and Jadeja's bowling at least kind of proved that maybe sticking to Ashwin would have been the better decision. I definitely thought he was a good chance to play at Melbourne or Sydney or both. Boss, these two tests are not happening, then England tour is not happening, and hence it's a sad end to a wonderful career. My biggest disappointment is that he got no real guard of honor, no standing ovation. I would have definitely loved to see him retire on the cricket field and not some glimpses of the dressing room and then a press conference where he didn't take any questions
Looking
because
forward
those are
to super chat
yeah, those are
questions.
going some 50 paisa per question or something.
Not even,
But
not
yeah,
even. But Jobs, I think you and PDP made a really pertinent point, right? Because today I think my favorite part of Ashwin, which is the test bowler, went away from us for the rest of our lives, which I think is a dramatic way of saying it. But I think some of us gave ourselves the time to watch all of his 500 odd wickets, which went up on Twitter earlier today. To PDP's point, I think a career that's been bookended on two ends by Australia tours that have been forgettable for different reasons, and the way he's reinvented himself in two more tours in between and really conquered conditions that he's not meant to succeed in, particularly that tour where the Melbourne comeback happened with Smith and Labuschagne and have to do the
Get the ball,
Harsha.
Ash.
Get the ball, Ash happens. I think that I think is a big tribute. And to Chops' point, just so many changes, right? One day he's bowling like Dharmasena, another day like Derek Crooks, third day he's bowling
full sleeve.
full sleeves, another
Going
time.
from between the umpire and going off, bowling
Yeah,
over
yeah,
the top.
Noel David, everything. He's pulled off everything. PDP?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that to your point that he does all these different things. The interesting thing about Ashwin is that you normally associate high levels of athleticism with high levels of coordination. I mean, those two are normally very positively correlated in international sport. Ashwin, I think, is a great example of someone who's got extraordinary levels of coordination to be able to bowl with different actions, different angles, to do the things he does. Requires phenomenal coordination, and yet he's had injury problems ever since he was a kid. He's not naturally athletic. He doesn't look like anyone's idea of an elite athlete, and yet he's been so successful. And I love that about him.
Bashna and Kaustub, time to bring you guys in.
I think the reason I'm even here is to just soak it all in, because I have been having a nightmare keeping up with the timelines in Australia right now, and I thought this day is going to be washed out, so screw it. Let's sleep in. I wake up.
That makes the two of us.
Yeah, I I wake up
Saying
half
as
past
someone who
four.
had to wake up at
Yeah.
4 in the morning to work on this.
But only one of you work in cricket journalism.
Thank God for that.
Amazing, you didn't put air quotes on that, Rakaus.
It's okay.
Wake up at half
One
past
of you.
four. I'm checking my phone. It's like Ashwin retired. I'm like, yeah, I'm watching some dream. Go back to sleep. Wake up again. Then group is flooded. 600, 700 messages. Hank is going on a tirade saying this is this week. That is not right. How can you abandon team in the middle of Australian Bay and all this is going? Like, oh shit, is he actually retired? And then as you catch up and you think this is very typical, I would expect nothing less. I think he's sort of been told where the team is at. And he's obviously been badgering them throughout the last test. Like Perth test, he would have badgered them, so he played Adelaide. Then he would have badgered them all the 4 days. Rain breaks also. He's like, am I playing the next? Am I playing after that? Tell me now. Gauti is like, nahi khela, so please. घर जाना है तो जा. So he's like, हाँ, मैं जाएगा घर अभी. And I will make one nice short press conference after the game also, so that nobody talks about the game at all. And
Two lines come to mind, right? One today from Rohit, who said he played with them under 17, under 19, I believe, some age group cricket.
Yeah, under
Suddenly-
17.
Under 17, right? And then suddenly he hears about an Ashwin who's taking 5 and 7 against other state teams, and he doesn't understand who this is because he saw him as a batter, right? So for somebody who started off as a batter into his late teens to have that level of control feeds into another line that I think it was Dhoni during the 2011 World Cup who asked, how did you bring this guy in straight into the final? I think he was dropped for the semi, if I'm not wrong. And Dhoni said, if there's one guy who doesn't care for an occasion and turns up, it's Ashwin. And that's like in his first year of his international career. Lots of mental strength and I don't know how to put it, but like the sass of the guy and the confidence of the guy was never in short supply, which I think feeds into the parts that we nib as well. The YouTube and the super chat and everything you heard about it. I think that's a understated part of the character that he was and how he turned up on most occasions, if not all. I think that's a big standout part of him that I'll remember.
And there's lots to dissect in his actual statement also. No? He says, I still have a lot of punch left, but not as an international cricketer, not to play for India, but I will do it elsewhere in some
Dindigal
other.
Dragons, Ra.
Dindigal Dragons.
My God, Dindigals! If it was only a stock, I would have purchased it then and there. Like, it was skyrocketed and retired happily.
It's also brought out the best of you, Bisi, in your Tamil nibs and all of this. So that also has to be said. Max?
No, but I'll say this thing. Like PDP said, which is what actually draws me more so much to Ashwin than any of the other players, is because he's very he's not your stereotypical athlete, and the way
He's a mathlete, bro. He's not an athlete.
he doesn't come off as that, and which is why it always gives me that hope, saying, okay, he's like one of us. Whenever I see Ashwin, it's like he's that one of us feeling, and we're about the same age. You know, both of us we have girls of the same age as well, and so right from the time he started playing, I've always had this thing saying, like, guy looks like me, plays like me, bowls like me, and so it was a very, yes, 500 I don't have. But it was a very relatable thing. Also because he's such a crazy cricket nut. Like yesterday, I was watching West Indies not failing to chase 127 against Bangladesh. And if there was anyone else in the world who would watch that game, I know it would probably be Ashwin. Like even the day before, when with all the rain breaks, I was happily watching England kind of disintegrate in their chase of 650 and lose wickets to Santner. Guess who else was watching the game? Ashwin was watching the game. He posted on his Instagram. So like, that's the kind of cricket nut he is, and that's what appeals to me so much about him. That he's more than just your, and whether we like it or not, or whether it comes off as trying to trying too hard or not, but it's the only guy who's kind of peeling the curtain to see, give you a look of what's happening behind the scenes. I mean, some of it probably obviously is for trying to make it funny. It's not funny. Trying to make it hard. It's not. But then you at least get that view of what's happening in a cricketer's life. Like when he's traveling, he tells you this is what happens when you travel. This is how we eat. You get that look behind the curtain of, okay, this is how they are also, and what they're feeling like even that New Zealand game they lost. Again, they were going to talk about the IPL. We knew that, but the first 10 minutes of that where he was very genuine, and you don't get to hear from anyone else, right? And that's what makes me like him so much. Not just for what he does on the field. I mean, I'm sure on the field exploits, like PGK said, like PDP said, statutory warnings, disclaimers. Everyone knows facts. They're on Stats Guru. You don't need to talk about them. Guy has taken 40 wickets in Australia, but he's apparently not good enough to bowl in Australia. That's fine. Facts. We don't need those facts. But it's these things that appeal so much more to you. The guy who he is, like, I know he would be watching, and he just loves cricket so much, and that's the portion which is why, and that's why it hurt me so much this morning when I woke up saying, man, this guy is gone. Like, they will not be another one. Like, there'll be a good spinner comes out. Like, I think there's this kid called Tanush Kotian and Washi and all these. There'll probably be good spinners, probably be better spinners who can spin more and all that as well. But to me, Ashwin was more than just a spin bowler. And that's why I think it felt a lot more personal when I woke up this morning than any of the others, right? Like I said, for me, Vaughan is like the ultimate. And yesterday, one of the best things that was happening was during the lunch break, they showed the top 50 Vaughan wickets, and they had Michael Vaughan. And I almost had a tear in my eye when that KP dismissal came up, and because I knew exactly where I was when that KP dismissal happened. I knew exactly where I was when that Jacques Kallis dismissal happened. And that same thing I only feel after that only for Ashwin, because there's some of those wickets I exactly know where I was, what I was doing when that happened. Especially when it's not like someone whose powers were waning. That's why it kind of just feels very weird. So in my mind, unless there's some serious injury concern, and which is why he thinks he cannot on, or it's maybe a thing that he doesn't want to be a passenger for the next 7 tests. I don't know what else, but time will tell.
Welcome to group therapy with Max. It's going to be fine, Max. It's okay.
I'd look at it this way, right? Like, it's thoda, like, you don't know that you are in a recession unless you're 3 quarters down and realize you can't get a job anywhere else, right? And like, you look back and realize nobody was hiring at that time because there's a recession going on. And I feel that's the same way about a team going through a transition, right? Like, you can't tell that a transition is actually happening till you look back, and you like then you notice, the signs are always there, or this seems like this is going to end soon, but you can't tell. And I think the series that went under the radar for everybody was the New Zealand series that way, right? Everyone was too shell shocked about the fact that India's batting failed so spectacularly. I think in the second test you had Washi playing, right? And Washi took 12 wickets, 11 wickets in Pune, and he was doing the role that you would expect Ashwin to do. Right? We have seen Ashwin do that for the last decade or so, and he was doing the exact. I'm not saying he was doing it better. I'm saying he was doing the exact same thing. He did the same thing in the exact next match also. It's, you could tell. I see, like, we have seen. I'm younger than a couple of you guys here, right? But that doesn't mean that
No,
season has
ageist. This is ageist. I
I was
protest.
not using this as an ageist comment, right? But I'm trying to say, when you read, like, social media is now currently occupied by people far younger than me, right? And you see comments like, "Oh, our childhood is going away. Ashwin used to bowl all the time when I was in school. He is not doing. What do I do?" And I felt that way when Tendulkar retired. I'm guessing. Like, I'm just saying, like, the transition was inevitable. I think PGK.
I'm so sad. I'm so sad, Kaus, that Hank is not on the show.
Yeah,
But
exactly, right.
anyway,
So I'm saying that the transition was inevitable, and I think you were PGK, you, me, Srinath, we were there for the post-mortem of, I think, the Pune test.
Yeah.
Right. And we were wondering, okay, where does the team go from here? Or what is going to be the big change? I think we underestimated how important Ashwin and Jadeja would be, and when they go, we don't know what's going to happen next. And I think the writing was on the wall already during the New Zealand series, where if you look back now, it's not like Ashwin bowled badly. Ashwin bowled as well as he did, but everyone else took the wickets. And at some point, the transition was going to happen. It happened to happen now. This is genuinely like looking back and realizing, like there was this one moment. I know I shouldn't bring the IPL, it's sacrilege, even though it's also Ashwin's one of Ashwin's favorite tournaments. But yeah, 100% right with Jadeja and Dhoni of all people. There's that I think it was one RCB Gujarat
This is
game where
long-term planning for him to become uncapped in 2030 also.
I saw that tweet. Yeah. So there was one RCB Gujarat game where RCB had to win or something. Kohli hits like his typical 100, I think, of 60 balls or 55 balls or something, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, the king has arrived" or whatever. In the exact same match, Gill hits 100 in not balls or something. He just bajaus the crap out of RCB, right?
RCB.
And you could tell at that you don't get to see that often, where in one match itself you see where the baton is being passed. You can tell how T20 cricket is supposed to be. You can tell how things are going to happen. Test cricket is not like that. It's like only when you look back, you can tell, oh, yeah, I think the signs were there. Oh, recession already started like 2 tours ago. That Bangladesh thing was like a blip in the GDP. I don't think like that, like those numbers should actually matter. So,
Economics professor, please continue.
There you go.
but
So,
I feel it was inevitable and it just happened to take place now. Ashwin probably called it quits because 7 matches being passenger doesn't make sense. I agree. So, but the signs were there.
Yes,
uh,
Professor.
no, so
I will take questions now.
no doubt. So to your point, cause it's funny you should mention passing of the baton, because one of my earlier live Ashwin experiences was 2012 Test match against Australia in Chennai. Where so back then Ashwin was known as this white ball guy. You know, he was playing a lot of white ball cricket. Chennai Super Kings, played for India. It was one of his earlier games as a Test bowler, and it was Harbhajan's 100th Test. So it was quite literally a passing of the baton moment, although I don't particularly like that phrase. Harbhajan, by some coincidence, struggled in that game, struggled really badly. Barely, I think, took 1 wicket or 2 wickets or something. And Ashwin, I think, took 5 or 6 in the first innings. And then, of course, Dhoni got that big double and Sachin got a 50 as well. So it was it was my earliest memory of watching an extended Ashwin spell, and it was quite beautiful. I mean, he bowled really well. So when I look at how he bowled against New Zealand in the last home series, it actually was kind of a throwback to Harbhajan in that game. You know, where he's done it all before, but for whatever reason, it's just not happening. Harbhajan at that stage had lost his loop, whereas it looked as though Ashwin was also struggling to find the right pace to bowl at home. It's something which he had done effortlessly in the past. He was struggling to get life out of the surface when it's a little slow. Again, it's a sign of an aging body. But I mean, I guess it is inevitable. And actually, I remember PGK, of all people, his biggest fan, saying on the group that, it's very, very clear that Ashwin is now struggling on slower surfaces. And even, he was also saying that between Melbourne and Sydney, Melbourne, it makes sense to play Ashwin. Sydney, it makes sense for Jadeja.
See, there are multiple conversations. Okay, one is you can always talk about the timing of the retirement and all the stuff that led up to it. I mean, quite frankly, I am less interested in that, in the sense that I always knew this was going to happen. It was going to happen now, it's going to happen later. Fine, whatever. It happened, it happened. We can sit and overanalyze it, but it doesn't really matter. I think if you look at Ashwin, the player as a whole, and that legacy, look, fundamentally, all sport at the end of the day is about conflict. That is what draws people to it. And usually you see a conflict that sort of reminds you of your own conflicts and the things that you go through. And that is what elevates sports people to, like as Max said, it's like you start to identify with that. So very broadly, there are two types of conflicts with sports people. One is, of course, this conflict of a sports person who's basically aware of the box that they are in and are constantly striving to push that box out, out, out. And you always see that and you observe that and you realize that this is what craft is. This is what art is. This is what it is about pushing it beyond the boundaries, etc. And that is not the same as greatness. Like, for instance, if you look at, say, hypothetically, for instance, again, this is very sacrilegious. I don't think Virat Kohli gives me that feeling when I see that. He's a great batsman. I don't think Rohit Sharma gives me that feeling. I think Bumrah gives me that feeling. I think Surya Kumar Yadav gives me that feeling. I think they give me that feeling of being a player who basically are trying to do something that everybody else says cannot be done. And you keep pushing that. And you watch that and you keep watching that and you realize that this is something really special that you're witnessing. So I think that is one part that people really identify with Ashwin for what he does. Like you're able to like change things that nobody else has ever done. You're able to see him try it every single day. And I think that's one. There's a second type of conflict, and the second type of conflict is much more common. And the second type of conflict is me against the world. Here is this vastly misunderstood sports person who all the sports person wants to do is rediscover or discover or do something that they love. And here are all the crazy, fucked up things that the system does not allow them to do it. And we all know that feeling. We all know that feeling at some level in our lives. We know that feeling in our jobs. We know that feeling in our personal lives. We know that feeling in anything that you do, where you want to do something because you love it, but the system and the politics and all of these other things, maybe somebody screws you over, all of these things stop you from doing the things that you don't like doing, that you want to do, but nobody lets you do. And I think that is what, if you look at the fans of like a Rohit fan, Virat fans, all of these guys on Twitter and all, try to bring up that conflict and try to create greatness that way and say, look at that. And that is what exists. And I think that exists for some sports people. I think Ashwin is that very rare sports person who has both. And he has both at the same time, right? He is someone who's pushing this and you can see and identify with this. But you also get the sense that, yeah, at the end of the day, he's someone who probably wants to play this game. Like, this is a very telling interview. Like, there are a lot of things that he's given in all kinds of interviews about how he blocks Smith's hands and the technique and this thing and all. Quite frankly, I didn't understand most of it, right? But this one part of it that I really genuinely remember, if I go through those, he did a series of interviews in the last 2-3 years. One with Indian Express and a couple with Cricket for as well. I think the one that I vividly remember is the one where he talks about how he actually, the biggest thing that he really failed when he was starting to, in this place where he was not sure about his position, he was losing his place in the team and all of those things. The thing that he realized that was changing was his love for the sport. He lost a love for the sport. Like I think he gives this quote where he says that I was sitting in my room by myself. It would be dark all the time. And I stopped watching cricket. And then that is what snapped him out of it. And he's like, this is not me. Like, how can I change my love for this game? Because that is greater than all of these things that happened to me. And how do I get that back? And I think that was interesting for me. So I think those two things somehow coming together in one person is what makes him both, well, special, but also, I guess, somewhat insufferable as well. So yeah.
PDP? Go PDP.
No, so it's very interesting. So to respond very quickly, 50% agree with you, PGK. Okay. So on point one, okay, I agree with you completely. Okay, because it is very, very clear that you're watching a scientist who's experimenting, who's pushing the limits. All of that, I agree with you. On point number two, I will, and this is the part that I struggle with, with Ashwin. He is easily the cricketer who has put out the most sound bites ever. And you're saying he's misunderstood. Like how, man?
He's misunderstood.
No.
I'm not saying he's misunderstood.
No. So I'm saying that no one in the history of Indian cricket has spoken that much about themselves as this gentleman has. Okay. So the word misunderstood, and
This gentleman, you won't even take the legend's name in your.
I'm not worthy, da.
It's pronoun, Ra.
I'm not worthy. No, my point is this. My point is that I'm not picking on you, but I'm saying that
that's fine.
This is a very, very oft associated word when, as far as Ashwin is concerned, that he is constrained, that he's fighting against the system. That
there's another phrase, right? The most overrated, underrated player ever.
Right. I mean, right. No.
That's the other way you want. You're saying it very nicely. I'm trying to like cut through.
But all I'm saying is that for me, the part that I struggle to deal with is one is what he does with a ball in his hand, which is absolutely amazing. But if you kind of get into who he is, which is what you were talking about, right? His demons, his struggles, they're actually very human and they're actually very interesting. Because here is somebody who says, this is who I am, love me or leave me. Many people think I'm arrogant. I mean, these are all things that he has said. These are things that he said in his book. And yet, if he really was all of those things, he wouldn't be as thin-skinned as he is, right? Very, very touchy. He's also the same person who, when a teammate was praised by the coach, said, I felt like I was thrown under the bus. So this is all part of the same person. These are massive insecurities. And that's part of what adds to the allure. It's part of what adds to the theater. It's part of what adds to the specter of watching
I
him.
think PDP, the big thing with him is in this era, name another cricketer who goes and speaks to journalists, right? Because there is a need beyond having your own channel. I don't remember too many videos after defeats, which is on purpose, obviously, right? But obviously, over a period of time, there are these sound bites and conversations that he's had with journalists, and he is that rare breed who loves to talk about this stuff rather than get 4 endorsements out on his own Instagram and just make his money and get out of the way, right? Completely. So in that sense, he's a complete rarity in his generation who's gone ahead and done this. I fully agree with you on the overall sentiment, but I also feel at some level there is a degree of insecurity in a team of alphas like Kohli and Rohit and people before that naturally comes for a personality like this who's been a batter till 17, who's had to get his way through the system, etc., etc. I see where that comes from, but if you magnify that with a few million people who share that siege mentality, it becomes insufferable, right? Like that's basically
Exactly. That I completely, which is what I said. I said that these two things are things that, like iconoclastic stuff in general, like if you just zoom out and look at it, people who do iconoclastic stuff are not always universally admired or liked. There is a certain set of people who say, "Oh my God, pushing boundaries." Other people saying, "Kya kar raha hai tu? What is the point in doing all this? Just go do the standard stuff. You're overthinking doing this thing." In this context, but in every other context, anyone who pushes the boundaries obviously gets that. That doesn't mean that they're always right. Similarly, with this, persecution or a certain sense of injustice being done also is divisive. Some people will agree, right? If you look at anybody, you look at Trump, you look at Biden, you look at leaders, you look at political leaders, you look at film stars, like you think Nepo kids think that they are privileged, they think that they are persecuted. So this particular emotion exists on both sides, and both of them lead to, I agree, very divisive.
It's a very sports thing. Like it's like this
It's
is
a sports thing. It's absolutely a sport. That's how I started. I said these are the two things in sports. These are the two fundamental
it's
conflicts.
very common in. I mean, the thing is, we don't see this much in cricket media as much, but in American sports, it's out there. Like
Absolutely. This is Colin Kaepernick. At the end of the day,
this is forget Colin. This is every NBA player you can think of. So I'll give you like this is we have all seen. I mean, I'm not saying Ashwin is Michael Jordan or something, right? But I would say
great example.
But like because I would say Michael Jordan maybe is like I don't know Kohli or something. We're like no, screw this. I'm the best person wherever I go.
I can give you one on a platter from football. Like as a United fan, I keep joking about ups and downs under different coaches. Sometimes I call him R Ashford.
And perfect. That's the absolute perfect way to call it. Yeah, I agree. That's the other thing, right? Like we don't know what drives athletes. We don't know what takes them. Ashwin being this person who has this kida in him, who's like, I want to tell people what I'm doing, but I also don't want to reveal everything. And I feel like the world is against me, but I also have the world by the cricket ball. Like it's the intersection of all of that where he performs the way he does, right?
See, my only limited point is that
you cannot have him behaving like that without him also taking 500 test wickets.
See, my only limited point is that, forget the 500 test wicket. My only limited point is that there isn't, generally in sports, there isn't someone who embodies both. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Usually they embody any one. And that is what makes him unique. Like he embodies both of these conflicts at the same time.
That
was my only observation.
Now 100% agree with you, PG.
Fair. That's it.
He only said, no, my upper body, lower body, two different halves.
Yeah. Batting and bowling, two separate games.
Batting, bowling, two separate sports.
Retiring press conference, different sports. I'll do it at different times. I can't do it.
Bad balls and over are the way to go in T20. Come on. Let's put it that one.
I can't believe we have been so long. Nobody has said anything about the Mankat. Nobody has said anything about retiring out.
White ball bowling.
This is going to be a 3-hour recording. What did you think? Tony has to anyways edit this. So who cares?
I mean, retire out for me is like the iconoclastic, like extreme. Like, I am better in the dugout than here. Okay, and that is good. Okay, that's going to take some time to understand.
Machan, then there is also the review of the review.
The review of the review, fair enough. Okay.
Inception.
Exactly. The review of the review is also there. I agree.
But he was the trendsetter because the review of the review just happened right now in the SMAT final. And it was only because Ashwin
At least today is not talking about irrelevant cricket. At least today.
Iconoclastic.
This
The
is
review
your
of
It is.
episode.
review
Bloody, you've
happened in
talked
the mid
about West
millennium.
Indies cricket, you've talked about England, New Zealand cricket, now you want to talk about SMAT. Next you'll talk about Paliampatti Shield also. Focus, Ra.
I love the game, guys, more than the
Yeah,
format or
yeah,
anything
yeah.
else. I just love the game, so can't help it.
This only Ashna kept saying. I love the game and all.
Yeah,
Which is why he was
that's what you
watching
guys
New
don't like
Zealand
it.
innings in dressing room and posting on Instagram. What a guy.
I think the natural conclusion to all this is because he says a lot of this, right? Ashna also does a future Big Four like we do. He also does Kathmandu, Gurkhas, and whatever Nepal Premier League level matches he watches. I think we have his number, and it's time to add him to LLC. I think that's the conclusion to this podcast.
But it is like the end of an era, right? We don't know now how long Jadeja will go forward. Going like this, he was one of two proper anchors who delayed the decline of Indian cricket, right? We discussed this before, where it had come down to the two of them saving multiple tests over an extended period of time over the last couple of years, and one of them has left,
In-
right? We don't.
including this test.
Yeah, but I would argue the rain had saved, right, a lot more. Like, Ashwin was not needed here, so that was a good call, I would feel.
I'm doing butterfly effect from Akash Deep boundary to save the follow-on to Ashna retirement. Would it have happened if India lost this test? This is the question I'm asking.
Acha, would it have happened if Jadeja had got a first bowler?
Possible. Another time he's standing in the way. What a guy.
One last time. Okay.
No, but Kaus, I think you're right there because it's if you look at it, right, like again, going back to what PDP was asking about my hate for Nylon. It's not my hate for Nylon. It's more that I feel that Ashwin should be up there ahead of Nylon, right? I don't take anything away from Nylon. Guy has 500 wickets as well.
I didn't even
In fact-
bring him up once. I just brought up Jadeja.
No, I know. I'm coming
I
to that.
wanted to say that. Max just wanted to say that.
So
Go on.
no, but it's Ashwin's whole thing of being a passenger for the next 7 games is also because of that. Is that we are prioritizing a bat at number 7, and whether it is Washi or NKR or Jad, right? We're trying to get someone to bat at number 7 because we cannot talk about the holy cows that come before, and that is what has kind of brought us to and that's the same thing that's going to happen, right? I mean, technically you don't have to play Jadeja even in England. Ashwin can be a lone spinner. He can play in England as well if he's bowling good enough, but you are having to bring him in because you have no faith in 1 through 6, and therefore you're like, oh, we need 6 and 7, but 6 and 7 can both not be spinners, so therefore we will try to do some Shardul Thakur nonsense or someone else nonsense just because we know
Not
we have to do
nonsense.
this.
I will like that's
Come on.
sacrilegious.
No,
Cows,
but again,
Cows is
WTC
Palgar
final,
Pollock
all
fan.
of this, right? If you think about it,
Please, Palgar Pollock. I'm sorry.
Polgar
Not-
Pollock, important. Anyway,
if you decided who was, and each of these selections, right? It's not who the best, when we go overseas, and whenever he's lost out to Jad, whether it's a WTC final or in Australia, anywhere, it's not the cost. The coin is never who is a better spinner. It's always who is a better batter, and
the
that's
better
what
fit
you're
in the
picking.
11. That's the
Right? You're trying to pick the better batter to fit into the 11, not the better bowler. And Nylon doesn't have that. They're not trying to see between Kuhneman and Murphy, and again, one of them actually might bowl in Sri Lanka now.
There is no
But-
judge. No, that's the thing. There
Yes.
is
No, but
difficulty.
they're not seeing who's the
Exactly.
better batter there. They're looking at who's the better bowler, and they're picking clearly who is the better bowler to get them wickets. We're trying to see who's the better batter, and now it's like this is like that. The runt has to kind of fight with himself to come up with something because
You mentioned the holy cows, right? I think if I take out all the overlying narrative and this things around it, the guy talking to everybody and on his channel, etc., ignore all of that fact. I see how this is a persistent pattern throughout his career. I think with the 500 wicket felicitation function, he openly thanks Chika because he was the selector after that England series loss, right? Guy thinks his career is over there, right there. 2017 Champions Trophy, final destruction. Chahal and Kuldeep are in again. Happens again. Jadeja pattern throughout the career. Finally now brought back in for the World Cup and plays one
Sorry,
game.
2021 Australia tour. Also,
Australia.
he said that I didn't expect to play at all.
Yeah.
Jadeja gets injured.
Yeah.
Right?
And ignore the fact that, the fitting into the 11, there is very sound logic and we've come to accept it that Jadeja's, career overlapping is the reason why he's not played as many times. But at 38, and when you've sat out 2 of the 3 games in a 5 test series, I get why it can get to you, right? On the one hand, there's the stats guru front end, and on the back end, you're not even in the broadcast camera. And I think today is the first time I saw him through the series, right? He's sitting
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
Same.
back of the dugout. I'm not making any assumptions. The story will come out in due course, but the point is he's not the guy who sits at the back outside of broadcast camera visibility. First scenes you see are him crying after that Adelaide test. It is strange overall, right? So I see where it can get to you and say, okay, this is enough. I'm better off playing Palayam Batti Shield. Maybe that will be telecast when he plays, and we'll talk about it in 155th episode or whatever. But I see why it's a persistent pattern, and you say enough is enough and move on. Like,
No, and
really big.
Macha Srinath, to add to your point, right? If Australia had the luxury of a player like Jadeja, I don't know if Lion would have played as many games, man. Like seriously,
It's
I yeah.
it's two players. It's historic that you have
No,
two
they
players
would
at
choose
this
a better
exact same
spinner,
time,
right?
right?
No,
Again,
No,
that's you're assuming.
why would they
so
not pick the better spinner?
so Max, since you bring up this example, okay, we'll go down this rabbit hole a little bit. Australia's batting has been shit for a while. They've been shit for a while. If
I know where this is going. Go for it. Yeah, go. He walked into it. Go. I know where this is going.
no, so I mean, you
No,
have
no, go.
you have a guy
We
who's
are
averaging.
doing one by one. PG is already 2 by 2. He's seen this. He said in another dimension. But go on, go on, go on.
See. Give your example. I know the example.
No, so my point is that they they have Lion who's like a amazing spinner, and they don't really have the. I mean, I think Cricinfo described it best when they called Jadeja a cheat code, and that's exactly what he's been.
That is the new
So
name of our podcast from episode 152, the cheat code, not bits and pieces. Sorry, to continue.
no. So all I'm saying is that it's been that luxury that Kohli and Rohit have had that's allowed them to do what they've done. Honestly, 2021 in England, which is the peak of Kohli's, which is the best Indian Test team I have seen, right, where they pretty much won the series in England. You can't tell me that Ashwin would have made that side. I mean, that was a bloody brilliant side. Jadeja got valuable runs with the bat, and it allowed you to play four deadly fast bowlers, all of whom were bowling well. I mean, that you can see that is the ideal. I mean, that's the dream. That's what they were shooting for, and that's a worthy thing to shoot for. It's just bad luck that he missed out, and I'm saying that. I mean, it's bad luck for him that he missed out. Selection, unfortunately, is not about justice to the individual player. It's about what the team needs you in a utilitarian sense.
As fans
No,
of
I
If
mean, I
if
mean,
you're really
even
talking about, go, Shops.
no, I would even go as far as saying that given what PGK mentioned about the two features or two conflicts or whatever, maybe the presence of Jadeja and the looming shadow of Jadeja all around him, all over him throughout his career, perhaps made him go farther in his search for, whatever new reinventions he had to do, whatever he had to do with his batting. If Jadeja wouldn't have been there and if Ashwin was the lone spinner, perhaps he's not the kind of guy who would have worked himself up to such heights without that challenge constantly being present. It was almost as if every single match, every single innings that he goes out with ball in hand, he has to prove that he's deserving of a place in the 11. And maybe Jadeja's present has egged him on to greater things. That's
But
entirely plausible.
he's not competing for a spinner spot. He's competing at an all rounder spot. You're having Jadeja as an all rounder, right? That is your number 5 spot, and you're trying to now compete with that. The goalpost is always further away from you. No matter how much you try, it's always it's not never an apples to apples thing. Right? Now that's why I said Nylon is a spinner, Ashwin is a spinner. If you look at them there, you cannot compete at an all-rounder spot. The all-rounder spot is different. You compete at the spinner spot. And you look at the guys who are on that spinner qualification, then you see where he lines up. Bringing Jad in is totally unfair.
I think the biggest tribute to Ashwin's legacy is the fact that we'll have this conversation about his career forever now, right? Like he will be the perpetual what if. What if he was made the skipper of the team? What if he didn't have
Oh,
Jadeja to compete
P-Dog.
with him? What if he was allowed to play the whole time and did not have to I'm just like, it's the best way to remember a character like Ashwin on the pitch, right? You always feel that he could offer more, but he's not given the chance or something. He's been put on the spot, or like there's always something in the middle, and I can't see a more fitting tribute than to
Bisi,
have this conversation about this person even now that he's retired. Oh no, but like he's taking all down the spot. He's retired.
He
no,
where his
No,
See,
but
career
when
is
he
not
so
over. It's
Ash,
sorry,
starting.
sorry, sorry,
He's still
Ashwin
sorry,
taking
just like
300
Bhaskar.
Vaughn.
wickets. He's still
No,
taking
I'll,
Ashwin
300
just like
wickets.
Ashwin just like
It's just
Vaughn
a
never got to captain his. Is probably the
okay,
best captain that never was.
very good. You brought up one. I was actually thinking that PDP will bring up that example when he's talking about
PDP, I
Australia.
can
But
see is
so I'll tell you.
broken man. He's a broken man right now.
So, so I'll bring it up, right? So, Vaughan, of course, played for Australia. If you take a very similar situation for Australia, Australia had one lone spinner, which was Shane Warne. Shane Warne gets what, 600 or 700 wickets, give or take, right? Stuart McGill's career never really takes off, but Stuart McGill, despite having Warne in the side, gets close to like I think if I'm not wrong, close to like
200,
200 points,
200,
200,
200,
200.
yeah,
200,
200
200
Yeah.
wickets,
wickets.
right? Jadeja has 300 wickets. Okay. So, number one, imagine now if Stuart McGill was 80% as good as one. If we are assuming that Jadeja is 80% as good as Ashwin, which by the way, we can argue is probably not true. Probably is, you could argue that he's probably 90%, sometimes 100%. One could even argue 110%, which is fine.
BCC
I can see
ranking
these
twice. Yeah,
things.
your estimates are thereabouts.
Fair. I mean, fair. You can say within that 90 plus or minus 20% of Ashwin, you can play that. Imagine if you had a player who was within that range of one and had a plus 10 batting average. I mean, I would think that Australia would have very similar problems. They would not know whether to play Vaughan or Stuart McGill. Without such an obvious distinction, Stuart McGill is able to get 200 wickets. So, no, I don't know. I don't really see it as, I think I see it more like, yeah, there was a little bit of bad luck in a sense that you got Jadeja coming in at the same time as Ashwin, and I think they tried to do the best that they can given all the circumstances. Yeah, but the thing that I am more annoyed about, specifically about this test series, is what I'm more annoyed about. Because I feel like in this test series, there are three random spinners. I mean, three spinners for three random reasons. I don't know. I just feel like that is what I'm more annoyed about.
There
Feels
has
like they're
not been a
picking the spinner
pattern. I
to
think.
pick the batter.
Yeah, that's a fair summary as well, right? It's not expected at all, and you can question all three selections. Maybe Adelaide Ashwin is perfect. Would you pick only one spinner? There's questions all around it. Even scratch the surface. We didn't do T20. We didn't do Chennai Super Kings opening the bowling. We'll do that in IPL preview, I guess. We didn't do Champions Trophy. We didn't do Pakistan well left, etc. So time to go around the table and ask all of you for a peak Ashna moment that you will always remember him by if there's one thing. Chops, I will throw to you and you can't say fielding. Let's go.
Well done. I like this.
No, I would definitely say that it's the New Zealand Test series that happened in which Ajaz Patel picked up all 10. While the test is remembered for that, and obviously India won the test, that was my second sighting of Ashwin in a cricket stadium. But the first, I mean, the one that I remember very clearly, and I mean, it was an absolute joy to see him bowl. I don't remember how many wickets he took. I don't remember whose wickets he took and what he did, etc. I must have picked a few. It was Bombay, of course. But yeah, I mean, just a master at work, and I mean, everything that you see on TV is so very different from what you see in a stadium. And to see him go about his business and constantly challenge every single batter was amazing to watch. It's fun to watch fast bowling also in a stadium and everything else, but I think I haven't had the pleasure to watch a better spinner in person in a stadium. So yeah, that'll be the test match and the moment for me.
We'll go through the nibbers first and get to the fanboys towards the end. PDP, all yours.
So I have two moments actually. One is from that test that I spoke about, Harbhajan's 100th and the game against Australia, which is memorable for a bunch of different reasons. But there's another more personal memory that I had, which was sometime around 2010 or 2011. There was an indoor net in Chennai, one of the first few indoor nets in Chennai, and I had gone with a bunch of my friends. And this was around this time when it's pretty rainy in Chennai. And because this was the only indoor net at the time, a bunch of Tamil Nadu players would also be there, just to kind of get into the groove. And we were playing once, and there were like three lanes where they'd removed the netting in the middle. And Ashwin and a bunch of guys were playing tip and run. And it was pretty amazing to watch. Simply because normally when these first class cricketers come there, they're doing some pretty serious practice. They're either doing some specific drill or practicing or something. Here was this guy doing things that he would never do in an actual cricket match. He was there just to enjoy that little game of cricket, and it was great fun to watch. And he was completely oblivious to everything else. He was not a big star then. I mean, people around who were following the game knew who he was. Otherwise, no. I mean, he had only played one season of the IPL at that stage, so he was not that well known. But that was a very special personal memory.
Nice. I was waiting for
Nice.
Divasu mentioned, but never came.
No,
Cows.
It's going to be cliched, but like it's this two final over heroics, right? One is the Champions Trophy dot ball, the final, like the ball that sealed the trophy, and one is that wide call, right? Like, and like you don't, like it's if I think it's also bookends at two eras of Ashwin, right? Where it's he's at his physical peak, I would say, when he had in 20 bowling really well in white ball cricket, and you bookended by leaving with the bat, right? Like it's too, like I don't think there's a more dramatic leave ever, like in cricket of all time. Forget like I don't know what is, like, especially given how dramatic that MCG game was, and how I think he also hit the winning runs where it was a four towards the end, and he acted
Yes.
as well. He's the one who scored the 80 runs that Virat Kohli had scored at the other end.
He
But
celebrated for Kohli also. Team match.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's these two things, right? But it's I should probably bring up any test match stuff, but this tournament crunch stuff is what is baked into memory more. For test matches, I have to actually sit and think and like
Yeah.
what like pull out something. These things just
Because
come out
there are
straight up.
many. There are many. Bashna.
Okay. I have two memories. My first memory of seeing Ashwin live was 2013 Australia series at Delhi on a minefield. It was an absolute minefield. Match gets over in 3 days. But it is Ashwin who absolutely unlocks the Australian batting in the first innings. And I think he's just started, not exactly sure when he's developed the carrom ball, but he's just started like putting it out more regularly in international games. And he gets Mitch Johnson bowled. And that guy's like, what just happened? He turns around to Dhoni and he's like, is it bowled? Because he thought they're appealing for stump. And I remember this very, very vividly. And Ashwin's giving him send off and all, like, go, over. And unfortunately, like we have discussed already, the story of that entire series was Ravichandran Ashwin, I'm saying. Jadeja runs through the rest of the batting lineup in like no time. So this is also the first time you get caught Rahane bowled Ashwin from first slip.
Rahani's debut, no?
Yeah. Rahane's
Yeah.
debut in that game. I good memories overall for the first time. The last time I've seen him was some throwaway single test match in Hyderabad against Bangladesh. Yeah, not much that I recollect from that. But again, his batting. Because he turns up to bat and he tries to take a quick two in between somewhere, and he's swiftly told by Jadeja to stay where you are. Not needed. Yeah, that's what I remember.
I was going to go for the same things as Cows said, but I will pick the catch that he took against New Zealand. For me, many different reasons, right? Guy's mental resolve has been spoken about. He would argue not enough, but I think at 38, in his least, in his let's say weakest aspect of his game, he runs backward and takes a catch at a clutch moment in a game. And I think somebody nibbed him for that on Twitter, and he replied, I think it was no, it was DK nibbing him on air because he was a commentator for PCC. Asks Ashwin how he felt about finally doing some good fielding or taking a catch. It's like Chops was interviewing him on air. And then Ashwin says, you guys always take my case, but when have I ever dropped a catch? Do you remember me ever dropping a catch? Very much raging against dying of light in retrospect, looking up back at that catch. I think that was a nice moment, even though we lost the game. It could have been a game changer where we actually ended up winning the test. So that for me. Go to Bison Max.
Right.
I think for me, I think it was the 2016 New Zealand tour. That game's in indoor. Is remember mood for Virat's double century, but Ashwin was just wrecking havoc with the ball. I think he took like 6 wickets in the one inning, 7 wickets in the other. I don't know which one was which. But that was that series, I think he took close to 25 to 28 wickets, and he was absolutely like demonic as a bowler. And the thing was, because maybe like Chop said, because of Jad, he had to kind of rediscover his batting and all of that. And the biggest thing in that was, I mean, there's that tight test where he made a century and all that, but for me, it was the Sydney game where he and Bihari just, blunted out them, body not giving in, and just that. I still have goosebumps just like thinking of it right now. Also, just the way that happened, and which is why I was so much looking forward to having him play again at Sydney, and that's why I kind of lost it this morning and so on. But yeah, he came at Sydney and it coming full circle. Even if he retired at Sydney, I would have probably been okay with it, because for me that was just like how you remember. One of Kumble's greatest thing for me is not the ten wickets. It's actually strapped up in West Indies when he came out with a broken jaw. Right? That level was what Ashwin came out that day at Sydney was for me. So if he even retired at that game and said, I'm going to retire, got the guard of honor, got the ovation, even if India lost that game, right? But at least it would have gone that way versus this one-off thing that kind of happened. Uh, so yeah, it was just kind of sad. But the funny thing was, I think even MS called it quits in the third test of that tour. So yeah,
Great
that's it.
timing, because when Murali in a yellow jersey refused to bowl with the new ball, Ashna actually did it. And we're talking about peak Ashna memories from all of us. So Murali, let you go and then go to PGK.
I have seen. I think the general appreciation for Ashna came from when he came in from the T20 era, and people keep thinking he's got the guile and the intelligence to bowl in those quickly changing moments and all of that. But the man thinks very differently in the long form, and I think especially I think I tweeted about it too. The Bangalore Chinnaswamy pull off with the 187 and the 112. It kind of looked, yes, India can like defend any target and all, but everybody had a belief, and then Ashwin had his own core belief. He had gone with his entirely different agenda, that this was something that we got in the bag already. Like his demeanor, the way he went about, he was not celebrating his wicket. It was as if I put a plan. Do you see the plan came off? Do you see the plan came off? It was like that. It was like I don't know, exceptionally well laid plans that were being executed to perfection, and it's very hard for an off spinner to be able to execute like that level. I think that's for me a supremely core memory, and because I'm from Chennai, that first 100 of his, where he was all kinds of, it's not a special test or iconic or anything, it's just to be able to score at that time at home. At the end of the day, there's a human carrying those emotions, putting it out on the field, and he's always a guy I've seen he gives 100% even while he's carrying water or sitting in the stands, and I think these two are reasons why I love him to bits.
Speaking of 100%, we will agree with you, PGK. Please finish this off.
Okay, so as always, Murali has come in yellow like Jadeja and stolen my answer. I was actually going to talk about Chinnaswamy because I'm in Bangalore. It seems fitting we should talk about Bangalore. And also, like PDP, he said it's a personal memory. This is also a very personal memory for the exact opposite reason, because I was not there. Because I had tickets for this game. I was supposed to go for this game. At the last minute, I did not go. It is one of my life's biggest regrets, because I did not see this test match live. So I'll set the context. So the context is Australia come to India, Australia playing. People don't remember India were one down in the series. That's because Australia won the first test in Pune. It's not just that Australia won the first test in Pune. It's the manner in which they won it. They absolutely decimate India. And for the first time in like a long, long time, ever since Monty Panesar and Grant Swan, I believe, who came to India, it looks like Australian spinners are now outbowling India spinners, because I think the first match, the man of the match was Steve O'Keefe, who probably gets closer to like 10 wickets. They come into the second match into the Chinnaswamy. First innings, India go out to bat, and people don't remember this. Nathan Lyon gets 8 wickets in that innings. Then after that, Australia come into bat. Ashwin does not have a great game in the first innings either. In fact, I think it was somebody else who got more of the wickets. If I'm not wrong, must have been Jadeja who got more wickets as well.
Yeah,
And
Jadeja.
then
Damn lobby.
Jadeja gets more wickets.
What is this?
Yeah, and then India come out again to bat again until that last day in Chinnaswamy where they're chasing 188 runs. Ashwin has had the most horrible test series in the world. And he's been outbowled by every spinner until that day when he walks out. And Murali is completely correct. If you go back and watch the highlights, even the highlight, if you get a chance to go watch it, he does not show anything. He comes out with this thing where I have this plan. And they only have 188. They get like a couple of early wickets from, I think it was Umesh Yadav who gets some wickets, but there is this nice resistance in the middle order of, I believe it was Matthew Wade and Marsh and a few others. Yeah, they put up a bit of a resistance and he blows them through. He is the one who gets those 4 wickets in the middle, breaks through. And the last wicket that he gets very appropriately to level the series is
Nylon.
Nathan
It's
Lyon.
Lion.
Yes. He gets Nathan Lyon as the last wicket at 112 all out, and that is when the series gets leveled. Then, of course, the next test is drawn at Ranchi. Then finally they go to Dharamshala and they win. Again, another venue that I wanted to go live, but didn't happen. But anyway, for different reasons. But yes.
Guy was
So
a
that
beast
was
with
my-
the new ball. Guy was a beast with the new ball. That was also something that you don't see.
Correct. So for me, it was that. So it's those kind of things that I really, really enjoy. Like there's this feeling of anticipation that you get when you know that he's coming. Like he's coming with the new ball, he's coming, and you know, okay, now nothing you can do. There is absolutely nothing that you can do. So yeah, I remember feeling that, and that was really nice.
On that
Yeah.
Hey,
perfect
Ashna bowled
nylon.
pretty okay in that series, no? I think what
First
second
test,
highest.
probably.
Yeah, first test he was bad, but second highest wicket taker in the series.
Yeah. Later he recovered, but until that victory in Chinnaswamy, in fact, I think if you ask him, I seem to remember he also had ranked that game as his favorite game.
Yeah, and he talks about the 100 with the same level of fondness too. That's the rare times where he gives up the fact that I also do some things because I find so much joy in. Up everywhere else, he's executing. The few times the human in him comes right out.
Yeah. This is Jayant Yadav series, by the way.
It's not Umesh, it's Jayant.
All series are Jain, the others.
It's true. It is Jayant Yadav series.
PDP, are you gonna add to it?
No, so just one more thing. There was until the last 3-4 years, right? There was this left-hander slayer reputation that he had, and we've seen it with so many not good, great left-handers. You know, whether it was Sangakkara, whether it
Yeah.
was Cook, whether it was Gale at his most destructive. You always felt that this dude had their number. You know, when he was in his prime and when he was bowling well, you always felt like he had their measure. So those were, there's that series in Sri Lanka, which was Sanga's last series, where I think he got him out for fun. 4 times in 4 innings or something.
There is a fantastic Jared Kimber video where he just deconstructs Ashwin against left-handers and how he's like the greatest left-hander killer ever. It's a very nice video. I would recommend it. It's a nice video.
It's called the dungeon of where left-handers go to die or something like that. It was
Something like that.
Yeah.
Maxna is a library of Ashna notes, and as we finish with
Wildebeest.
Wildebeest it's total wildebeest of Ashna content. Nylon 0, Ashna 1 with that Bangalore memory. It's a good place to finish what has been memorable episode 151, your friendliest cricket podcast. It's been a blast. I think even those of us will miss nibbing him while he's on the field, because there is no on the field anymore, and we just have to rely on YouTube content and other media outlets where Ashwin is going to no doubt be part of. Maybe Kaustubh, he is soon to be colleague in some series in a few months.
Stop
time.
the count. He's ahead of Lion right now.
Guys, it is Ashwin. He could be any of our colleagues. You don't know.
Hey, next episode he might be on the pod, Ra. What is this?
That's what I'm saying. It could be anyone's colleague.
If that's
Where
not
are
a
you
plug,
working? Can you imagine Ashwin working there? Of course you can. Okay, come on.
This is one tweet, no? Whenever I see Ashwin come to bowl, I imagine, before he comes to bowl, imagine him handing over his Accenture.
Yeah, that is
Lanyard,
the famous Braticus tweet.
Yeah.
Bharat Urnitan.
if that's not a plug for the podcast, and I've been 2x2 here, Rohin and PGK could have Ashwin on the pod very soon. It's been a blast, guys, reliving this with all of you. Different shades of fandom and nibbing as we like it on this pod. Say bye, guys.
ये जो ऐश है तेरा रवि ऐश है तेरा इन द फेज है तेरा, कहता है पुजारा, इन द प्रॉब्लम है ये कभी ठीक नहीं हो सकता। LLC की है जो खुशबू तू कैसे भुलाएगा, तू चाहे कहीं जाएगा, YouTube पे आएगा, नई नई शॉर्टों में, कभी कभी रीलों में, खोए खोए दिल से तेरे पीड़ा ये कहेगा, ये जो ऐश है तेरा, रवि ऐश है तेरा, PGK ने सुनाया, ये जो ब्रैडमैन था तेरे सामने वो भी हार गया, हार गया। तुझसे ही जीत सभी प्रीति ये कह रही, सब तो तू पा लिया, अब है क्या कमी, अब बॉल के पीछे दौड़ना तर से, दूर तू है अब यार घर तू बर से, आ लौट चल तू अब दीवाने